Thank you for watching this screencast in your afternoon of learning today. This screencast is going to provide you with a nice overview of the English Language Arts standards, but more than importantly, it's really going to talk about the shifts within the ELA standards and give you some pretty awesome resources for you to explore, to learn more. All right, we're going to focus the beginning of this just on the major shifts in the Iowa Core Literacy Standards. There are 3 major shifts, and these shifts are really a high-level summary of the biggest changes signified by the adoption of the Common Core State Standards. Some of you may know this, but it's really important that everyone working in the school, and I believe the district, should have the solid understanding of shifts required. And there's some for ELA and also for math. Today we're just talking about ELA. They, focused on this piece is really just to know that there's a focus on complex text. There's a focus on reading, writing, speaking, grounded in evidence from text, both literary and informational. That means that they are not only showing their answers in writing, but they can speak to it. They can say where they found the information. So there's also the need for them to do a lot of close reading. And the third major shift is really that building knowledge through content-rich nonfiction. That's going to get them ready for college and career readiness. So let's dive into the first shift, which is complex text. So rather than focusing solely on skills of reading and writing, the ELA literacy standards just highlight this growing complexity of text that students must read and be ready for the demands of college, career, and life. Standards call for a staircase of increasing complexity so that all students are ready for those demands. They also really outline a progressive development of reading comprehension. So we have those anchor standards that go all the way from K through 12, and that's that increasing or progressive development of reading comprehension skills and needs. Let's dive into how do we determine text complexity? Well, there's 3 major ways. We have the qualitative way, the quantitative way, reader task considerations. Reader task and task considerations. Sorry about that. Qualitative. So qualitative is you're asking yourself, does the text offer ideas or information that furthers students' understanding of a topic? So this is, as a teacher, is the text appropriate for the task you're asking them to achieve? So you're also looking at things like text structure, vocabulary, the knowledge demands that I spoke to before. Some of the text structure is very simple, which should be what we use at a lower grade level. As we're getting up into the middle and high schools, we need to increase that text structure. So when presented with that information in a textbook, when presented with that information in college, they're ready for it. They know how to interpret those complex text structures. Then the quantitative piece is really looking at it could be looking at just the lexile number. So it's referring to things such as word frequency, sentence length, text cohesion. And that's just 3 of them. The primary leveling tool, again, is Lexile. There is lots of information on Lexile, as you can visit lexile.com if you want to learn more. And you can also, most books are Lexile. If you type it into lexile.com, put in a book, you should be able to find the Lexile range. Again, Lexile is not a perfect science. It usually gives you a range. And the third consideration is reader task and task consideration. So how much prior knowledge do my students have about this topic? How interested are they? What will be difficult for students in reading this passage? Again, we don't want to level down. We want to increase the rigor of text complexity so that our students are ready for college and career. So let's just dive right in. So look here, which text is more complex? Take a couple minutes and read text 1, then take another couple minutes and read text 2. I'll give you some thinking time. All right, so probably just by looking at it quickly, again, if I'm cutting you off, you can pause the video, but you can tell here that the context for this is 11th grade history class, first of all. You're thinking about which text is more complex. So, well, the answer is obviously the text on the left is the more complex text for an 11th grade student. So complex sentences, there's lack of words, sentences or paragraphs that review or pull things together for the student. Dense information, sophisticated vocabulary, sophisticated subject matter and concepts. Now, the text on the right, text 2, is actually similar information. However, that one's coming in at a 2nd to 3rd grade reading level. Complexity level. So if you're an 11th grade and teaching 11th grade students, you may defer to, well, some of my students are struggling readers, I want to go with text 2. However, if you're doing that, you're really limiting their ability to comprehend, to do deep reading, and that's what we want our students to have the opportunity to do. So as you're creating those common formative assessments in your CTTs this year, have a conversation about complex text. We're going to dive into some of the resources here in a little bit, but Appendix B is going to be huge support for you in those team meetings. So here's a strategy, and some of you probably know it, some of you may not. Google it, get more information because it's a great one. So close reading strategy. So close reading is thoughtful, critical analysis of a text that focuses on significant details or patterns in order to develop deep, precise understanding of the text's form, craft, and meanings. I know as adults you probably have had the opportunity to read something, and I know for myself it was, I think it's 100 Years of Solitude. I read that book and had to read it with a thesaurus and a dictionary next to me, and I had to do close reading because I had to read some passages multiple times to ensure I was truly comprehending all of the information. So here is an example. There is no specific sequence in close reading. So just a suggestion here. These steps are just meant to generally guide you to craft a lesson that scaffolds students and focuses on that increasing complex text-dependent questions. So let's look at number 1, first read, key details. So following the first read, you might have the students do a think, pair, share. Assess what they have gleaned from the text by listening to students as they share. Then you can determine the focus of the first read. Step 2, second read, craft structure. So you might want to use a text-dependent question to focus or set a purpose for a close rereading. So first glean, key details, or just talking about what they gleaned from it. But as you're listening, you're going to say, okay, now I know what my second question is going to be. Now they're going to read it again. So students share with their partners, small groups, have groups share out with the entire class to assess that understanding. It's great to have them talk to one another, helps those syntaxes to start snapping away. And number 3, the third read, integration of knowledge and ideas. Have students journal. This is an idea. You might have students journal a response to a text-dependent question. Focus the discussion on text evidence. So remember text evidence, that's that second major shift for the ELL standards, and let's get right to that one. So this is a great strategy. Think about including this. Doesn't matter what you're teaching, science, social studies, economics, you could do close reading. All right, so here we go. Text-based evidence. So again, reading, writing, and speaking grounded in evidence from text. Can the students come back to the texts to find evidence of why they think a certain way, of why they have a claim? So here's sample, I like this one, sample information text assessment. So pre-Common Core state standards. So high school students read this excerpt, okay, James D. Watson's The Double Helix, and respond to the following. Look at this, look at James Watson used time away from his laboratory and a set of models similar to preschool toys to help him solve the puzzles of DNA. In an essay, discuss how play and relaxation help promote clear thinking and problem solving. So pre-Common Core, that's something that you might see as a question type. Let's look at this one. So here, informational text assessment, same passage. They read that The Double Helix. Now, here you go. By the end of this article, James Watson felt that the answer to everything was in our hands. What was the answer? What problem was Watson trying to solve? What steps or processes did he use to discover the answer? So there's an example of going right back to the text to find answers, and instead of an emotional response or a what I believe, it's going back to the text to get those answers. So that's probably a simple thing for you to work on when you're common formative assessments. Ask those kind of questions. Again, Appendix B is awesome for helping with some performance tasks, and we'll dive into that in just a second here. All right, third one, balancing literary and nonfiction text. So in grades 6 through 12, there is much greater attention on the specific category of literary nonfiction, which is a shift from traditional standards. So just to be clear, the standards pay substantial attention to literature throughout K-12 as it constitutes half of the reading in K-5. It is the core work of 6-12 ELA teachers. However, also in grades 6 through 12, there's also standards for literacy, hidden history, social studies, science, and technical subjects. We have a real key consideration here in the district, I think, to make sure that we're embedding those priority standards into those other areas of social studies, science, and those technical subjects. So reading, writing, speaking, and listening should span the school day from K-12 in every subject. So when I say we're all teachers of reading and writing, that's what we're getting at. All right, so here's just a quick graph that shows you the distribution of literary and informational text, and you can kind of see, again, this is from NAEP. If you're familiar with NAEP, it's the National Assessment of Educational Progress. So anyway, grade 4, and this is from their test, they're 50-50. We get to 8, 45 literary, 55. By the time 12th graders, it's 30% literary, 70% informational. Think about that when you were going to college. Most of your reading and writing was informational text. So shifts mean change in practice from content knowledge given from teacher-led lecture to a balance of reading, writing, lecture, and hands-on experience. That's the real focus there, is just for us to get that balance occurring through kids talking, students talking to each other, pulling out evidence from text, ensuring that there's a focus on nonfiction and that text complexity. So there are 2 videos. I am actually not going to show them. They're a little bit long in length, and I want you to pick the one that you'd rather look at. So those are underneath this tab in the Pick Your Path. This one's an example of a 12th grade ELA. It's a great video. There's actually some subtitles that show you it in action. So it's a 12th grade ELA lesson with the teacher really showing those specific shifts. So I think it's pretty cool. And if you're middle grade teacher, you might want to check out this 8th grade video, because you can see those teachers in action, and you can see when we're talking about the text complexity and those other shifts, you can see how that teacher is using that in her expert instruction. So I said that we were going to get to essential resources for understanding the standards, and I don't want to let you down. So there's 3 appendixes that I think are so important, and maybe I'm just a little geeky because I really think they're important. But the first one is Appendix A. There's Appendix A, B, and C. So A, if you want to get an overview of the research, you want to know more about text complexity, you want to know about the ELA domain description, those developmental progressions that I hinted to earlier about what do we see, what needs to occur, foundational skills for comprehension, or the comprehension and that progression. You'll find all of that in Appendix A. So there's a glossary of key terms, and all that awesome research is right there. This takes a little bit to load, so if you are if you have it on your Chromebook, just know that once it's loaded, you can save it to your desktop. But it's a 43-page document, as you can see, so you might want to download it, have it available for future reference. All right, now let's get on to Appendix B. So I love Appendix B. So Appendix B gives teachers text exemplars. So this is organized by English, language arts, and you have examples of stories, drama, poetry, informational text. In the upper grades, you have your history, your science, your mathematics, and technical subjects as well. It gives, and it's organized in text complexity grade bands. So your middle school, you're going to want to look in at 6-8. Then it goes 9-12 as a grade band, and then you have 11 and then on to college and career readiness. So it is a very large document. We'll pull it up here in a minute. So again, you're going to want to download that on your desktop so you have some reference to it. But probably one of my favorite appendixes, just because you have this sample performance tasks. So think of sitting in CTT. And I'm just going to click this open for a minute here so you can see what it looks like. This is a whopper. This is 183 pages. So again, it takes a little bit of time. But you have obviously a table of contents, so you can see here's your K1. We're going to scoot over that. I don't want to make anybody dizzy here, so I'm sorry if I'm doing that. But anyway, get down a little bit further. Okay, here's that grade band. So here you go, grades 6-8, text exemplars. You've got stories. You've got your dramas, your poetry. So what they've done is they've taken in this grade band, this has the text complexity that you should be teaching at for that grade band. And I think it's really interesting. Think about when you're creating your common informative assessment. You're a 7th grade teacher, an 8th grade teacher. Is this the type of reading you're requiring of your students? Because guess what? When they get that Iowa assessment, this is the type of text complexity that whether they're a struggling student or an accelerated student, that they're going to be asked to comprehend. So let's get them prepared early and let's get them exposed to it. Then, probably my most important, look at here, right here. Sample performance tasks. You don't have to make this up. You don't have to go back and redo it. Go right here. It gives you an example of what you may want to ask your students to do in order to show proficiency on meeting a certain standard. Does the same for informational text. Now, this isn't the only text you can use, but I think it's a nice little go-to. There's your history, social studies. Again, there's your science, math, technical subjects. And then there we go with our 9th, 10th grade. So close your eyes here for a minute if you get dizzy. I want to pull this down to page 96 real quick. That's about where we need to start. Okay. So I just think it's really interesting personally to look at this and see the type of reading. So it gives an example. What to do here. This is obviously a technical text for your math teacher. Guess what? Here you have a math passage. Here's some informational text, but this is the kind of complexity that we should be seeing in our middle and high school. So great resource. Please use it. All right, and last appendix. I know I said B was my favorite, but probably C. A little bit more so if you're into writing, because what this does is it gives teachers samples of student writing. So the samples meet the quality required for proficiency. Examples for argument, informative, oops, I got a typo, I'm sorry about that, explanatory text, and narrative text. So you can dig into this one. And it's actual student writing. Some of you I know all this, and I'm sorry it's a repeat for you, but here you go. You want to see what kindergarten writing should look like? There it is. Go to page 6, but you want to get probably up into page 42. Again, close your eyes if you get dizzy. Get on down here. Oh, there we go. So here's a sample of a student sample of grade 8. What I love about it, more so than just here's the actual writing, is that there's pages of it, because again, this is an 8th grader. We want them writing 3. There's annotation, so it shows you right away is how did it meet that standard. So you could have the standards side by side. This is a great resource and conversation piece for your collaborative teacher teams to dig into those writing standards. All right, and without further ado, here are my top 5 resources, okay? I'm sorry I didn't put Iowa Core, but the Iowa Core is right here. And educator resources in there, there's some great things, professional development, but more so videos. There's a great blog if you want to see it. Common Core, state standards, you're going to find lots of information there. Achieve the Core, I have to say, is my favorite. It just gives you exemplar lessons. So you can sort it by grade level. You can sort it by ELA. It also has math in there as well. And then Engage New York. I know I'm showing you a New York State site, but it's pretty phenomenal. In fact, those 2 videos that I am showcased on here came from Engage New York. There's just really a quality site. And then Smarter Balance. I know we've gone kind of ping-pong back and forth with, are we going to Smarter Balance or are we not? Are we going to or are we not? Still words out on which assessment we will go to. As soon as we know, we'll let you all know. But Smarter Balance is just, there are some excellent resources there for learning about the shifts. Just go into the educator resources and just play around. It's going to give you some really quality stuff, especially as you start to create those common formative assessments and want to dig deeper and apply the ELA shifts in your teaching. So if you've got questions, don't hesitate to contact DCSD Curriculum Department. You can email me, Corey Guy. It's guycore@davenportschools.org. You've got your curriculum specialists. We're all really focused in on this work. So if we don't have the answer or the resource for you, we're going to find it. All right, thank you for spending the last 21 minutes with me. I went a little wordy on you, and I'm sorry about that, but I hope you learned something new and can apply it to make your classroom instruction awesome for next year.